Hey guys, thank you for joining me again. This is video number 3. So in video number 3, we are going to go into the items that I dislike about the beta and that need to be changed in my opinion. Again, it's just my opinion. What I like, you might not like, and that's fine. Just want to give you my insight on the bike. Some of these items are just some silly things that every manufacturer tends to do, and then they don't change, which I'm kind of surprised because Beta actually made a lot of updates to this bike, especially for this year, and I was kind of surprised, and I held off on buying these couple of things knowing that this may be an issue because, you know, I thought it'd be just fine. And then I found out in a short period of time that it wasn't that good. So to get started, my number one dislike, I mentioned this in my other 2 videos, I changed the tires. The reason being is I was in the first hour of riding this machine, and those Metzeler 6-day extreme tires, they literally deflected off of everything. I even lowered the air pressure down to like 9 pounds. Originally it came to me at 17 pounds. That must be something to do with the dealership setting it up. And the tires were absolutely horrible for me. So we're in New England. So here the temperatures were about 45 degrees when we took it for a ride. Sometimes we get wet conditions, we get rocky conditions, we get rooty conditions. And I got to tell you, they started deflecting off of everything. I ended up, and I was sliding. The front was kicking out. I thought it was the suspension settings at first because I don't have a picture of them here in this video. I could add it afterwards. But the Metzeler tires are meaty. They're very beefy, and they're huge. The back tire was a 140/80/18. That is a ginormous dirt bike tire. And the front, I think, was just a regular, I believe it was like a 90/90/21, if my memory serves me right. But at the end of the day, the tires had amazing knobs on them, the ones that were on this bike, those Metzlers, but they did not hook into anything. I would take corners, the front would wash out. I would go over a bump or a root, and the back end would slide out. I actually literally slid into 2 trees with this bike on the same trails we normally take the KTM on. Or we had another KTM as well. So we used to go on these trails all the time. I was very familiar with the environment. I was very familiar with the conditions. And but after riding this bike right here has Michelin's on it. There was a Michelin medium enduro front, and it has a Starcross 5 medium in the back. And those tires hook into everything. And we went riding with this particular bike, and this bike was all over the place. And I was actually extremely disappointed in my first hour of riding. I was so bummed out. I was like, I can't believe this bike's riding like this. And I would have never believed it was the tires. But I lost traction everywhere. Even in the little pit track in the back, every time I would take a berm or something like that, the bike felt like it was going to wash out. I don't know why. And the only thing I could come up with, those Metzeler tires, when you feel the knobs, there was no give. Like, this is a Michelin tire right here, right? And the knobs have a lot of, there's some give, there's some flexibility. Not a ton, but there's some. But on the Metzeler, I didn't feel a lot of give. And even the carcass, you know, there's only so much air. You know, these I think have like 12 pounds in them, and there's some give to the tire. The Metzlers, even at 9 pounds, 8 pounds, didn't have any give. So I tried adjusting the pressure accordingly for better traction, and I just felt like the way they made the rubber compound on those Metzlers, along with being FIM and DOT certified, they were just too stiff and the knobs are too hard. So I'm sure you'll get a lot more longevity out of it, but it didn't make any sense because I just couldn't hook up. And I had a good bike to compare it to because I had one, we were riding on the same trail with the same terrain. So right off the bat, the tires were extremely disappointing. And those are premium tires. They're quote unquote top-notch premium hard enduro tires. But they didn't work for me. They got removed off the bike after the first hour riding, and they got sold literally the next day on Marketplace. So they are gone. So I went with the Michelin medium enduro in the front, which I've had a lot of good luck. I've had better luck with this one, especially it's kind of a fatty tire. It's a little wider. I've had much better luck with that particular tire, especially on this KTM, especially in our area. And also, I wanted to try a new tire. This is one of the Mitas 454 Extreme. I wanted to try that because that's a softer compound. I was going to put another Michelin on the back of this bike because we had such good luck with multiple of the bikes and also the ones we service. And I wanted to try that Mitas because that's technically like a studdable tire. It's a softer compound, mainly for like hard enduro. So I just wanted to try that out, and so far the tire works fantastic. So I'm loving it. So and you know, I'm going to put it through the spring, and we'll see what happens. If not, you know, I'll update to like a Shinko 525, which is a great tire. It just doesn't last that long, but it does hook into our environment pretty well around here. Or just go back to a Michelin Starcross, which I can go to a motocross track or a local trail. And that was my whole goal anyways. So number one, the tires were trash for me. Anybody else, I hear great reviews about them. People love them. But if you own this bike, or even some of the KTM variants, and you have those 6 days on it, and you don't feel like the bike's got good tractability, dude, get rid of the tires. That's my recommendation. Okay, number two is a huge thing on this, and I've read this. So people did talk about the tires, and people talked about the seat. The seat is literally rock hard. It's rock hard. You could look at that as it's like a training seat. The foam is so hard, even when you just sit on the bike, it hurts your taint. I mean, I'm not a big fan. Now, normally we stand up 80 to 90% of the time when we ride our bikes. We're never on the seat. I mean, look at the seat. It's in like a mint condition because we don't sit on it typically. But there's a huge difference. Now, that's a Seat Concept seat. It is extremely plush and extremely comfortable. Now, if I go to buy a Seat Concept seat for this, I'm waiting 15 weeks. Not doing that. I'm not waiting 15 weeks for a seat. I did find a pretty decent Seat Concept seat cover, so I'm going to update the cover, even though I don't mind the cover that came with the Beta. I like it. I'm not a huge fan of the Enduro Pocket. It's cool. I like it, but if I ride up front, I'd rather just not have it. So I'm actually just going to change the seat cover, and the only thing I can get a hold of right now is a Guts foam, and we've had good luck with those, so I'm going to convert this over Guts foam and the Seat Concepts race seat cover, and that's going to look sweet. I can't wait to put that on. Plus, it'll be comfortable. But I've been looking at this as a training seat, and actually the short time that I've been riding this machine, it's actually made me a better rider. I'm actually standing up more. So those few times. But those few times I were, when I hinge, I'm 6'2", 195 pounds. When I hinge my body properly and I'm hitting whoops, this thing's smacking me in the back. And yeah, I'm going to stop walking funny. I actually had to wear mountain bike shorts with the padding on the bottom to ride this bike that last time. So to avoid that, just change the foam. Can you ride the bike with the seat? Yeah, of course you can. If you want to be comfortable. I'm just surprised Beta did that. Doesn't make any sense because this bike's made for enduros and turkey runs. It's got a lighting kit. I mean, it's made for cruising. It's not made for straight out standing up all the time. So why wouldn't you put a comfortable seat on there? But I guess this has been a faux pas for a very, very, very long time. It's been going on for years. I just thought maybe 2022, because they made all these adjustments to the motor, they'd probably change the foam on it. But every time I sit on one of the older ones, it's like a brick. People say it's like a 2x4. I used to laugh when I heard that until I started sitting on a few of these. And then I was like, oh, wow, they're not lying. So, and that's just sitting on it. Never mind riding it. So anyways, the next thing that needs serious attention on the bike. Now, do you have to do this right away? No. Should you? Absolutely. It's the electrical. So, and listen, I specialize in electrical diagnostics on cars. And I'll tell you, the majority of electrical that I see come in is on European machines in cars. BMWs, Audis, Mini Coopers, Range Rover especially, Jaguar. Now, if you look at this, right, this is the cluster wiring. If you look, see that nice blue seal? See that blue seal right there? That's a weather pack. That is to protect the elements from getting into your wires. Now, if you look, it's got them, right? So you probably say, well, why are you even making a point here? Well, this is my point. So these are all loose wires, right? There's no dielectric grease in it. Now, a lot of factories don't do that, so that's okay. That's not really a qualm. But if you look at the back, even if that was connected, the back is wide open. That's supposed to be much tighter. If you look at any Japanese bike, those are much, much tighter, almost like heat shrunk, if you will. Not really, but they are kind of. And then usually sometimes there's actually grease in it, but not a lot of manufacturers ever do that. So that being loose is not a big deal. But you should put some dielectric grease. Actually, it's almost like a must, because then you won't have any problems. Now, a couple of small electrical issues. Now, if I put the headlight to the side, now I didn't have high beam when I went riding at night, and the headlight's pretty much borderline useless. You got to put an LED bulb in it or change it up, one of the two. Most headlights on dirt bikes they suck. I mean, I can't put it any lighter than that. That's why we run. If you look up here, See those big ass LED Baja headlights? We stick those on our bikes when we ride at night, especially when it gets like dark at 4 o'clock here. You put those on, you can run those with a DeWalt battery, and oh man, you'll light up everything, which is amazing. You use a dirt bike headlight, you see the front fender shadow in the front of it. It's kind of borderline useless. So I didn't expect much from the light, but I will put an LED bulb in it. I have it. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet. But this blue wire was hanging out, literally like 2 millimeters, just enough to almost notice. That's why my high beam didn't work. So I had to push it back in. It clicked back in. I found another wire. It was in the front over here, because I started checking the wires, and like 2 of them went click, click. They clicked right in. So they weren't even fully pushed in. Now, I know we had COVID. I know they had some manufacturing. I mean, I'm sure they have people shortages, but I guess Beta, along with, and I run into this with the other variants too, they got electrical issues, but those are all wide open. See all that? Wide open. That's not good at all. It's a dirt bike. It's exposed to mud and dust and dirt and water, and even if you might even be exposed to salt, and God knows the crap that's on the trails. Look at this is the headlight wiring. Look at that, all wide open. To me, that's just lazy. I don't know why they did that. Such a premium bike, and they left that all exposed. So I'm not trying to crap on Beta for that, but I run into this with a lot of European stuff. I find stuff on Volkswagens and Audis, and all the stuff's exposed, and sometimes it's even under the hood of the car. And, but that's a car. I mean, this is a dirt bike. It's an off-road machine, technically. So you shouldn't have those issues. Now, here's a lower one, because you might actually say, oh, hey, that's up tall, and you're not going through a river, 4 feet deep, and you'd be right on that. But see that plug right there to like the throttle position sensor? It's all exposed. It's tough to get the angle. It's open. That needs dielectric grease or silicone. It needs some type of sealant. There should be weather packs in these. And plus, what's going to get in between the 2 plugs? So even if that was sealed, is it a tight seal around it? See, a lot of plugs, they seal that all out. I bet you if we pull that off, there's no rubber around that. And that's the thing that people don't realize when they start having electrical and diagnostic issues, is there's a weather seal on most automotive type stuff that seals the plug. So even if that little bit of moisture gets in between that plug, not just the front and the back of it, it can't get in there. And you don't want that. That's bad juju. You don't want to be messing with those connections. There's some people on some older Betas. I had one at the shop not too long ago. He had a problem with the starter relay. It was corroded. And he doesn't really go through a lot of water, but moisture found its way in there. They're all exposed underneath the seat. So all those need attention. They did put some plastic covering on there. So if I rip this off, they put a plastic covering on this one, and so did the older ones had it, but moisture still found its way in there. And look at, you can see the plug. If I can turn this just right. See the plug is open inside, in the back part of it. It's all going to be sealed up. If not, you're going to get water from the backside. It's going to corrode the relay and the terminal, and it's just not worth it. So that needs attention. The wires up here need attention. The body's coming off, and every wire is getting sealed in dielectric grease. And you know what? I'll never have an electrical issue with this bike. Component-wise, they don't have failures. So it's just the electrical. So let me show you another thing that I'm not having a problem with this bike, but it will become a problem. And if you're already having problems with a 20 or 21, I can tell you right now, I will save you a shit ton of money in diagnostics and a lot of hours in repairs. Because when this happens, you will go out of your mind trying to figure out what's wrong with the machine. So the $1 million fix right here, because we've had 2 of these so far that came in, is this wire harness. So if you look the way it's routed, now a lot of the Betas are like this. They route right over the radiator. Okay. Well, that's pulling. It goes straight down behind the radiator. Now watch, there's so much, hear that tension? Hear that? This is a brand new bike, okay? Now, after I ride this for a few hours, let's say I put like 8 or 9 hours on it. Well, for me, turning the suspension and see, watch the wire tighten up as I turn. It loosens and tightens and loosens and tightens. Now, you can make some slack adjustments and get that slack, that tension off it. Listen to that. You can hear it clear as day. We've had 2 of them so far that had electrical issues in here. And we didn't realize it at first. We thought it was CDI issues. One of them was a non-race edition. So we thought maybe it was an oil injection computer issue. Check engine light was on. One day the bike would start. One day it wouldn't start. One day it would just run perfectly fine. We couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. Well, actually not me, but the person that was driving it. He rode on the trail for like 3 hours, ran perfect, and then one day it's like it ran out of gas. Couldn't figure out why. So he thought it was the reserve issue, which is another issue. We're going to talk about that next. But it was not. So there's 3 things I'm going to show you right now that will save you so many issues. So first one out of the 3, it's actually going to be 4. So number 1, clean up your electrical. Anything that's open, I don't care if you got to silicone it. I don't care if you just buy some dielectric grease. Guys, it's so cheap. I mean, look at, you could just go to Napa, buy some Permatex dielectric grease. You can literally put that in. If not, put some silicone on it. Another thing too, thread locker. Some bolts do vibrate out. Doesn't matter what you own, they do come out. So some blue thread locker. But at the end of the day, dielectric grease your whole electrical. Take the 10 minutes it takes to take your gas tank off and your plastics and just seal up your electrical. I don't care if you own a KTM, a Husqvarna, a Kawasaki. You see anything that's open, seal it, or at least get it so that it will resist water intrusion, okay? That's step 1. Step 2, if you own any of these betas and your harness runs over this radiator, be very, very careful. Now, normally you would think, oh, it's going to chafe through. The ones that we found, the wires just one broke and one chafed inside this casing, this protective casing, 'cause that's what it's for. So beta, if you get an older one, like an early 2020, they'll just give you a whole new harness, and that's great. But at the end of the day, prevent it. Just get it so it doesn't do that. The 2 people I dealt with, they went out of their minds trying to diagnose this, and we just fixed them recently. So I was kind of blown away that people were running into this. But we were able to figure it out, which was awesome. I took all the plastics off, I ran the bike, and I moved the whole harness around and the whole machine while it was running, and one of them stalled. So we knew it was right there. And then when the second one came in, I didn't even go through a big diagnostic process. He pretty much told me the exact same symptoms the bike was experiencing. And I eliminated the other 2 items, which I'm going to tell you right now. So that will save you tons of hours and a DNF if you could just fix that. Just release the tension on it, reroute the harness so it's more up in this area and not against the radiator. And God forbid you get the radiator guards, the protection, the braces, it's going to put more tension on it. Okay? So this is the other thing you want to watch out for. That's a big issue. The gas cap. We've got a couple of these. Now, mine's already bad. Now, you notice when I took the cap off, you didn't hear anything, right? Well, when my bike was sitting in the garage, and there's different heat temperatures in there, I could hear this thing hissing in the garage, just sitting there. We didn't move the bike. We didn't touch the bike. I knew right off the bat there was something fishy. And I heard about these green valves, right? There was a thing online that was talking about how these could actually vacuum lock your gas tank where it doesn't breathe. And it's supposed to be an EPA, rollover type valve. And it's a noble device, but you have to remove this. Remove this off the bike and then put an inline, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to put an inline valve, a check valve. So if I roll over, the fuel doesn't puke everywhere and start a fire. The green valve will stick. Now mine was sticking. So there was a couple of times when I heard the hissing, I took the cap off and it was like an old school, 1986 car. You could actually hear the tss and I was like, what the hell? And that's because the gas is building up pressure inside the tank. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to vent properly. If this doesn't vent, it'll vacuum lock the tank and no fuel will come out. So the best advice I can give you is you should put a clear ceramic type fuel filter on here so that you can actually watch if there's fuel going into the carburetor. You should anyways, because you don't know what the hell's going through here. And if the screen in here doesn't work inside the petcock, you want a backup. Because then once you get in your carb, you can take the carb apart and clean out the debris. I run into that every day. Don't waste your time. Every machine should have an inline fuel filter in it. So that goes on to number 3, the petcock. So a lot of people have gotten stuck because they'll have it in the on position and they still got 1.5 gallons of fuel in it and the bike cuts out. Reserve should be only like 0.5 gallon, maybe 3/4, 1.5 gallons, and the bikes are cutting out. So then they figure it out finally after getting stuck or the bike runs out of fuel or whatever, and then they put it on reserve and then the bike's fine. Don't be that guy. Either run it in reserve or we're going to have to modify the petcock. Now, I have not removed this from this to figure that out. I'm going to wait till I go through a tank of gas because it might just be a stack inside there that can be modified. I'm not 100% sure, but other than that, I'm going to leave it in the reserve position for now. So, inline fuel filter, leave it on reserve. Get rid of this vent valve. I don't care what model you have, because that's absolute trash. Just to give you an idea, I mean, this is the thing. There is no perfect machine, right? Look at the KTM. If I can get this off. This has got a check valve in it. We've never had an issue with this. Hear that? It works. My older one had a release button, and it worked perfectly fine too. There's something with that cap. Now, that's one of those silly things again, right? This is something that people have been running into with this bike. They've had problems with the reserve. They've had problems with that valve. They've had some problems with the electrical. We've already had a couple of models that had this electrical problem. So this is stuff that's been happening. This is not new. Am I shocked that they didn't fix it yet? Yeah. Is it a big deal? Well, no, not really, because if you know about it and knowing's half the battle, then take care of it. Other than that, everything else is pretty reliable. The suspension's reliable. The chassis is reliable. I checked all the torque on the bolts when I got the bike. It's mint. So I was afraid stuff was going to loosen up. I heard like bolts would loosen up on the bike like they weren't tightened. I checked everything on the bike. It's all torqued. Even the spokes, they were all torqued. Should you keep an eye on it? Yeah. Should you lock tight certain things like these exhaust bolts, right? These vibrate. It looks like the same thing from a Husqvarna and a KTM. Yeah, throw some Loctite on there. You don't take the pipe off every day anyways. This one's off because I took the skid plate off. You have to take that off to get it off. But, yeah, Loctite it. Even the motor mount bolts. I'm going to loosen those nuts up. Bam. I'm throwing a little bit of Loctite on there because I don't plan on taking the motor out anytime soon. And I don't want it loosening up. And you know what? This does have a dampener. You know, it's got the, what do you call it there? Vibration dampener built into the motor. So, which is nice, the counterbalance. So, it doesn't vibrate like most of the other bikes. Like we had an older KTM, like a 12 KTM. I mean, that thing vibrated. The old newer KTMs are really good because they got that built into it now, the counterbalancer, and so does this one. So, I don't notice a lot of vibration. So, if that's another thing that you were thinking about on the bikes, this one doesn't have that. So, what is the other thing? There was one of the, one other thing that kind of, steering stops. These need some attention too. See those guys right there? Now, granted, if you ride the bike, you won't really notice it. I'll tell you why I notice it. Because we do a lot of downhill mountain biking and regular enduro type mountain biking as well. And we need, when we're going really slow speeds and we got to articulate the bike, we need it to turn a little more. You don't notice until you ride this thing. I mean, this is pretty stable too. I can go really slow and the bike balances itself out pretty good. That's what I like about it. It's got a better balance than the KTM. I mean, the KTM, I can go really slow and I can putt around with it. Same thing with the KDX. But this one, I feel like it balances out even better. You know, and that's what, like 12 pounds in both tires. There's regular tubes in there. You know, we're not running mooses or tubeless at the moment. It balances well. You can go really, really slow. I do like that. I like to practice that, especially when we're articulating through obstacles. But the steering needs to be adjusted. And it's really close to the radiators. I mean, not too close, but it's far enough away where, you know, we can make some adjustments and get away with it. But I'm going to come up with something with the steering stops. I'm also going to readjust the radiators. I'm trying, I might even shim them back. I'm waiting for a radiator guard kit to come in. A bracing system. It's on its way from like, oh my God, I think it's Turkey. I think that's where it's coming from. So it should be here any day now. But the KTM, much better turn radius. Much, much, much better. When I turn it, you probably won't notice it, but I can assure you, even with no adjustments, it's way better than the Beta. But most people would never even notice that. You really have to be going really slow and trying to articulate yourself around obstacles, you know, and that's the only time you're really going to notice it. The other thing is too, you probably noticed on the kickstand, bike's really low, right? So when I kick out this block, bike sits low. Is that a factor? No, not really. It's just on a really kind of a steep angle. And what I've noticed so far is because it's on that angle, all the weight gets put on the foot. When all the weight gets put on the foot, if it's a little soft, it's going to dig in. Now the foot is a good size foot. You know, some bikes come with smaller ones and they obviously poke right through the dirt, and then the bike falls over, and that's not a lot of fun. And you're gonna go pick it up and it's already leaking fuel. But look at, this is a 2x4, 1.5 inch thickness, right? And look at, the bike still has a good lean to it. So kickstand's a little low for my taste. I'm actually going to upgrade it to the spring catches on the bolt. Is it a factor? No. But watch. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to try to do this where I can hold the bike and hold the phone properly. Watch this. You can see the spring it catches. Yeah, that is that a big deal? No, absolutely not. Not a big deal. But you know what? They make an aftermarket kickstand that's got like no spring mechanism. I'm throwing that battery on there. I'm not sure on the height. I think this one's a little longer, so I'm gonna add that on there. Look at, see, even if I just put it in. Oops, my bad. The camera, my bad, guys. It's tough to do this one-handed. I think it's a little longer, so I'm updating the kickstand. Is it necessary? Not at all. Just being picky. Just being picky. But I can assure you, I got to pay attention to the reserve. I got to pay attention to the electrical. This valve is getting taken off after this video. And I'm gonna purchase the inline system. And every piece of electrical is going to get dielectric greased and sealed. And you know what? That won't be a factor. I will eliminate any future problem with the bike. And that way we can really get a good documentation of how this is. So that'll be the next video. It'll be all the add-ons. It'll be the guards. It'll be the radiator guards. I think they're going to be here by tomorrow. The new plate that's got the linkage protection. And just a few little goodies I'm going to add onto the bike. And then we're going to start riding it. Hopefully the snow's off the ground. So I appreciate you hanging out with me. Thank you for listening to me rant about different things. I hope these little things about the beta, the things that I don't like, help you with any, you know, whether you're riding a different machine or you're riding a machine like this or this particular machine. I hope those diagnostic things I showed you help you, because those people spent hours trying to figure that out. A couple of sleepless nights. But now they're fixed in there. But if you can prevent it, and knowing's half the battle. Have a great day. Hope you're chasing excellence. Take care.